My name is Zlata. I am from Belarus, and I am a rising senior, I guess, at NYU Abu Dhabi, studying psychology. However, I'm also two-time in it with a lot of artistic things. So psychology is not the only thing I'm pursuing, but that's what my diploma is going to say. It's mostly singing, so music and performance, acting, all things related. And that's actually why I'm in New York right now, because I'm a part of the show, reality show for, which is an introductory show for freshmen that covers topics of mental well-being, specifics of campus life through like fun things like comedy, sketches, songs, and all things that, which is very fun. I think it's somewhat similar in a way that when I studied in my high school, and I also studied for like one semester in a Belarusian university, I also didn't really, not also, but I wasn't prioritizing academics necessarily much, and I was very involved in like artistic life and extracurriculars, and sometimes the priority was like meeting other people who also study in the same place and all things that. It changed a bit here because I actually like what I'm studying and I see that professors also respect the process, for example. So it's more interesting for me to um, bring out my academic side as well. But yeah, it was called Lyceum BSU, you'd say Bagu. And it's not an international school, but it's, I would say, in my humble opinion, the best from what's available in Belarus. So it's, I think it has students from all over the country, not necessarily all over the world. Um, but it's a bit of a different experience than a regular school that would have like 10th, 11th grade overall. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I loved it. It was nice. It had some differences from like general high schools that we usually have. For example, we didn't have to like dress a certain way necessarily, and other schools would be like enforcing this like white, black, whatever that's called, office style. And at the Lyceum, they were like, yeah, it's fine. You can have like you can dye your hair some crazy color, you can have like piercings, you can wear jeans, you can wear shorts. And I was like, what, you can do this? As of a few years ago, I think things are changing a bit now, but at least it used to be a very freedom oriented place. When I was a part of this institution, I didn't really feel any connection whatsoever. So we had a separate examination systems, um, wasn't really connected to the university itself. There were a few programs that we could take part in, for example, like studying at the university for a week during like our spring break. But technically any school could take part in this. So I guess the advantage maybe was there, but it was more like vibes related. Like people just know where you're from and you're like, oh, you're from this place and you're like cool. Or some people would be like judgmental about this, or they would be biased here, like, oh, you're from Lyceum, like, and think certain things about you. But it wasn't connected in any other way aside from this. It's a separate thing. Which again, things are changing now, unfortunately. But this is how it used to be. So, for example, they changed the name of the Lyceum to the name of someone who does not necessarily have to. Um, it's a subtle change, but it means certain, things politically. For example, um, a lot of teachers, professors who used to teach, they left. The new ones came. The principal changed a few times. So again, I have no idea how is it now because I'm not studying there. Um, but yeah, I hear that there are certain things that are changing in the culture as well. So we had the same system as university does. So instead of a regular class, there was 45 minutes, which is a regular class length for any Belarusian school. We used to have an hour and a half, which is like a university lecture. Um, we could we could choose like a profile, like a specialization. Mine was philology. I guess it was Belarusian language and English language. I didn't really care what I'm studying. I had a diploma from like a contest, and they could take me without exams, and I was like, yeah, let's go. That's nice. But there were different profiles like physics, math, something, 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 biology, chemistry, like a bunch. And it's basically for 10th and 11th grade, so 2 last years of high school. I really loved it. It was really great. I loved the teachers, most of them. But again, as I said, I was mostly involved in like being a part of like the creative group there. And for every celebration or like end of the term, we used to have a concert. So I was an active participant there. A debate club. I also did this. I don't think I was the best at this, but every Saturday I was like, I have a debate practice. Yeah. About the first part of your question, yes, I was a part of them. I was doing Belarusian language and literature, and this is exactly how I got into the Lyceum without exams, because as I've said, I had a diploma, and if you want like first place, second place, third place diploma, you can get into this school without exams. But I quit immediately as soon as I stepped into it. I was like, I'm in a new era. I want to explore something different because I've been doing this for 2 years. So it was very intense. And no matter how much I love it, I was like, let me try something different. So I didn't do it anymore in my last 2 years. But the team was present overall at the school, and they were really focusing on like preparing students for these Olympiads and giving them the knowledge, and Lyceum usually performed really well on them. As for international universities, I think I know a few people. Yes, they're like, actually, I'm thinking of like the map now to imagine who's who. A few people went to UWC colleges after their 10th grade. So for the last year, so they technically didn't finish the Lyceum. They studied for 1 year and they switched to this one. Or I know a few people who went to Georgia, the country, to study at the new school, I think, which is also an IB program, just like UWC. Yeah, it's a decent amount of people who are studying abroad. Yeah, I would say that. I had no idea what NYU is. I had no idea what Abu Dhabi is. I was like, what is this part of the world? I guess I've heard of Dubai, but I never paid much attention to the Middle East overall. And I actually had a very solid plan for myself. I was like, I'm gonna get into Belarusian State University. I'm gonna study journalism there. I'm gonna graduate in 4 years and I will do something. I can't say that I was extremely like passionate about this. And I've always had this dream of studying abroad in the back of my mind, but it didn't seem realistic. So I think I've made peace with the fact that that's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be for free. It's not gonna be the best education, but it's gonna be okay. Like it's gonna be fine. Everyone is doing this and I'm gonna do this somehow, So this was the plan. And then after my 10th grade, so before my senior year of high school, I went to this summer camp in Georgia, like summer camp for active youth from Eastern Partnership and European Union, something like this. I applied there very randomly because my friend was also applying. I applied there in the last very day of the deadline. And I was like, okay, let's go. It's fine. They accepted me. So I flew to Georgia. I spent 2 weeks there. It was in August 2019. And I met a girl there from Moldova. And we became really good friends. And once the camp was over, she flew back to Moldova. I flew back to Belarus. And we stayed in touch through Telegram. Like a friendship story of 20th century. And we stayed in touch through Telegram. And she was a year higher than me in high school. So she was telling me about how she's like preparing for university admissions, blah, blah, blah. I was hyping her up. I was like, yes, get it, girl, get into a dream school. And she told me about NYU Abu Dhabi being her dream school. And this was the first time I've heard about this place. Because it's really not popular among Belarusians. No one knows about this college. But she told me about this. I was like, yeah, cool. It's nice. It's lovely. And then she went for candidate weekend, which was the thing where university just flew a bunch of people who they are thinking of admitting for a weekend, covering their flight tickets, covering the life expenses, and they just fly a bunch of these potential students on campus, show them around, do some like events to like see who fits in, if they fit like the campus culture. So basically it's like a way to travel to the UAE for free, which is nice, and we didn't have this in my year anymore. But my friend did this, and she came back and she was like telling me about how excited she was, and I was being a good friend. And then she's like, it's not many people from Belarus there, but I was thinking about you, and I was like, you would fit in, I think. Do you want to try and also like apply? I was like, that's kind of insane. And I already am applying for a different university in like a few months, because it was my 11th grade. But I was like, yeah, let's try it. Why not? And then I got into the Belarusian university and I was studying there. But once the admission cycle was starting to happen for NYU Abu Dhabi, I was like, let's try. And I started writing those essays, taking a language exam, other things. And I applied being like, yeah, they take 4% of people. They probably won't take me, but let's try. And the second I got my admission letter and I realized I got in, and I got in with financial aid that was covering all of that, which is really important for my specific context. So that was important. So when I realized when I got in, I was like, I am not going to classes to Belarusian university anymore. I stopped the second I got it. I was like, goodbye. I think if I didn't get in and if I stayed back home, I would also be happy, just in a different way. So it wasn't because I hated this university so much that I had to go anywhere. It's because I really loved the other one so much and it sounded so cool. First of all, it's a very like interesting location, and then it's people from all over the world, from like 100+ countries. So that's really cool. Opportunity to choose any major you want, and you can like switch it at any point. Very generous financial aid, a possibility to study away, a cool campus. Just everything about it sounded really cool. So I was like, yeah, obviously I wanna try. And again, I used to have a dream of studying abroad, and this was like me coming back to this and being like, oh, so that's possible. I can do this. Yeah, and she actually graduated like a month ago, and it was crazy because I remember all of this so vividly, and seeing her and having our like last dinner on campus was crazy, because I was like, remember how 4 years ago you were like texting me and being like, do you want to try like, being here, and now we're all here together and it's been 4 years. Yeah, that's crazy. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I had a very interesting first year for sure. Not necessarily the best. As you've said, things can be stressful. It's an entirely new environment. It's so many new people. It's the whole new system. But somehow, before coming there, I was like, everyone's gonna have like trouble adapting to this new place, but I am so spontaneous and open, and I have this all the time, so I will not feel any difference. I genuinely expected to be like, start right off from this very like high note, which obviously didn't happen. And of course, just like any other person, literally, I had some things going on that were not as great as I would want to, which mostly were not related to like classes or grades or something. For me, it was mostly like people related, like finding new friends, having your old friends be away, like living away from your family. Yeah, things like this mostly were hard. In terms of major, I think I came in wanting to do theater. I wanted to do acting. and I switched to psychology in my second year. And I also took a bunch of like different classes in my freshman year. It wasn't just theater, it wasn't just psychology. It was also like one film class, one law class, math, something from political science, one music class. So I was like exploring, as university always says, you have to explore in your freshman year, which I don't necessarily agree with anymore. But I was exploring. I was taking different classes, and in the academic matter, it was fine. It wasn't my best year in terms of like GPA and grades, but it was still okay. Well, I want to believe I was and I still am very like aware of what's going on in the world. So I think it wasn't necessarily me like coming there and being like, oh, I have so many cultural shocks. That I don't think that was the case. And I really like that people are from different cultures. Most of my friends were from very different places from where I was. Again, because we don't have many Belarusians on campus. So I didn't have the choice of, for example, like hanging out with like 10 people who were brought up in the same place, just because I didn't have 10 people who were brought up in the same place. And I liked it. It was really interesting to like get to know someone from Sri Lanka or from Morocco or from Venezuela. So these were, I'm just like listing random names who were my actual friends back then and now. So it was interesting. I don't think it was anything explained by cultural differences. I think the drama that was happening, it was more like personal level. It's not necessarily because we grew up in different places. I did my study away already. It was in New York. It was in this fall. Yeah. You can study up to 2 semesters abroad, depending on your major. So, for example, for psychology, you can only study away for 1 semester. There are some majors that allow you to do 2. Yeah, I think you have to have above 3.0, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if this is actually always enforced. I think it is, but I think if like there can be exceptions and people can maybe find their way around this. However, I'm not sure. I've never encountered this like dilemma of if it's going to be enough or not for me to study away, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it has to be 3.0 for you to study. And if you are doing engineering, to get your second study away, maybe you need a certain like 3.8 or 3 point something, which is a crazy number. My advice for this is don't do engineering, which I'm kidding, obviously it's a joke, but yeah, it's just for them. Yeah, it's really different, I think, for people dependent on their financial aid package. Again, not everyone at NYU Abu Dhabi is on the full financial aid, so they probably have a different one, and I'm sure some people are renting Airbnbs as well. But I am privileged to not have this financial concern, and I was placed in a dorm. Not necessarily Palladium. I am at Palladium now because I'm doing a summer program, and summer programs usually place people in Palladium. In the beginning of my study away, I was actually placed in a dorm in Brooklyn for no reason. I had no classes at Brooklyn. They were all like Washington Square. For people who know New York a bit, it's like downtown Manhattan. So all my classes were there, and my dorm was like super far away. I mean, much further away than every other person I knew. But then I did the bed for bed thing, and I switched places, and I moved to where I live now, around Union Square. I love New York. It's really great. Classes in Abu Dhabi are definitely harder than in New York. It's way easier to like impress professor with your participation in New York, because basically if you raise your hand once and you say something in class, they're like active participation, because people rarely do this. This is something I noticed from class. They don't care. They can come to class if they do come to class, and like just listen, just be there and not necessarily participate. Maybe it's the classes I've taken. I don't know. But yeah, I would say it's easier. It's a bit different from for artistic classes, because I also took a bunch of those, and these are usually very small classrooms with like 6 or 8 people. So obviously you have to participate there. For example, one of the classes I was taking was on screenwriting. Like you can't really come to your screenwriting class and be like, yeah, I wrote nothing. Like you have to, everyone has to work. But when it's like a huge lecture-based marketing class, for example, at 8 a.m., like no, just it's not that hard. Yeah. First of all, the first thing I learned is it is possible to study in a place you really want to, even if it seems like it's a crazy thing and you don't have the financial needs for it, because scholarships and programs exist. And even though it's hard to do, it's possible. So I suggest, if there is this want and this crazy desire, I suggest go for it and try. Because if it doesn't work, worst case scenario, you just go back to the safe option. Second, doing random things actually helps a lot. Like all the things I was involved in during my school that my parents were like, why are you doing this? This is so, like, go study. Like, why? Are all of the things I used later in my application for the university as like my extracurriculars. All of them. None of this was useless. Because people, like universities, want to, see a well-rounded individual, blah, blah, blah. And this is what makes you a well-rounded individual. So don't forget about your hobbies, and just this like random small thing that you want to do can lead you to, first of all, you can like it and it can become something bigger in your life and you can, I don't know, build a career out of this. But even if you don't, it still adds to your points of being a well-rounded individual and a good potential student for such universities. It's just two. What else did I learn? Okay, the third one is the importance of connections. Because if I didn't have this first friend who invited me for this program in Georgia, and then the second friend who told me about NYU Abu Dhabi, I would never even learn about the existence of such places. So your friends actually can, I don't want to say level up your life, because it's a very like materialistic approach that I don't necessarily support, but you can learn tons of cool information and opportunities from people you're hanging out with. So expand your group of people you're hanging out with, and of course, give back to them and also offer cool things to them so that they also can level up from you. Thing number 4 would be, not all the people who you think will stay with you will necessarily stay with you throughout your university years. So not all the friends you have at your high school will be your best friends throughout all the following years. And I am saying this because if your argument for, like, I don't know, staying in the country or going to the specific place is because your other friend is also going there, maybe sometimes it's good to be skeptical about this and be like, yeah, but I actually want to do a different thing. And also, I think it's about choosing the people who would genuinely be happy for you, and friendship with whom will stay in your life even after you're changing the country and you're changing the place, which I'm lucky to have such friendships, and I hope people have them as well. And the last thing has to be the best one, but I actually have nothing. What can it be? What can the last lesson be? Just things have a way of working out. If you think that there is no way to get where you want to get and you have no idea how to get there, it's okay to not know things. At any stage of life, it's fine to not know things when you're 40. It's also fine to not know when you're in college. And it's especially fine when you're in high school. It's like so fine. It's weird if you know what you want to do. I will say that. Like, you have to not know. That's the experience. That's the era of life you're in. And use this not knowing as your advantage, and be curious, and just whatever sparks your curiosity, follow it, and it's gonna work out. It's nice to online meet all of you guys, and I wish you luck, and I wish you to follow your dreams. Bye bye.